Hello, my friends. We're back covering more Atmos for you. I'm Gene Delasala, president of Audioholics, and we have
Hugo Rivera, vice president of marketing. Gene, today another historic moment.
It is a historic moment for us, yes.
We're doing an Atmos speaker autopsy.
Yes, it is. We have the screwdriver over here. You know, we got to see what's inside of one of these magical speakers for once. You know, because for months now, this has been Roswell-style technology. Dolby won't talk about their IP, and nobody will talk about it. So I said, let's do a little reverse engineering.
We did look through the windows to make sure that the men in black were not there.
Yes, and we wore our sunglasses in case they pressed the zapper to make us lose our memory. So, with that being said, today we have definitive technology A60 Dolby Atmos speaker modules. And they're meant to go right on top of their BP 8060 ST towers. Okay, I mean, it's the bottom of the speaker is plastic. It has little grooves in it, so it just kind of slaps right on. And the nice thing about it is it just looks like an extension to the tower. You're not going to see a speaker on top of another speaker like we did with our little Atmos mock-up that we did in our other videos.
Right.
We didn't test it with the tower itself. We tested it with regular speakers. But I think we should get into the design of it and you know, do a little exploratory autopsy, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. What can you tell us about the design of the speaker? What is it made of, really?
Well, it's pretty plain, actually. You know, for $500 a pair, you're certainly spending a lot for the Dolby name on it. And it's really nothing more than a 3-inch paper-treated driver on a 20-degree angled baffle. And it's in an MDF enclosure. It's sealed. It's the size of their tower, basically in the width and depth, so that way it just fits right on top of it. It does have gold binding posts on the back, and it has the Dolby crossover, which is what's causing it to be such a high price.
What about this foam over here?
The foam is actually a good thing. Thumbs up to you, DefTech, for putting the foam there. The foam actually acts kind of like a way to control dispersion, because you want the Atmos speaker to fire up at the ceiling and bounce down, not radiate so much around you.
Okay.
So the foam is a good thing because it kind of acts like a horn load, if you will. And I'm glad that they put that in, because some of the ones we've seen, I think the Ankia ones, it was just nothing more than a shoebox. So at least they put this here, so that helped out a little bit. But the driver is, you know, it's really nothing to write home about. I mean, it's like one of those Radio Shack Tandy drivers that you get from the old TVs. But it does have a Atmos stamp on the back of it, and I'm suspecting the reason why it has the Atmos stamp on it is it has to meet a certain impedance requirement set by Dolby. Because unfortunately, you know, because Dolby's patent, they want you to use their 8-element crossover with the exact values that they specify, which you could see in the video that we shot on that. You can't diverge from that. You can't change the values, and because of that, you have to use a very specific kind of driver.
Right.
In this case, it's a 5-ohm driver, and you're stuck. I mean, I did notice that they added an extra inductor in this one, and I'm guessing that inductor is there because we saw like a huge 2 kilohertz notch. Like a 2 kilohertz, and I think if you look at the impedance graph, and you know, you could throw that up in the video, there's a rise in impedance at around 1K, and I think they were trying to control that a little bit. So it's either the horn loading effect of the baffle, or it's just the driver nonlinearity, because let's face it, this is not a high quality, you know, kind of driver. It's not commensurate with their towers, because let me tell you, Hugo, I'm a huge fan of DefTech.
Yeah.
Their towers, some of their towers are just amazing sounding. This has none of those virtues, and I hate to say that because I do like the brand, and I know the designer that designed a lot of the DefTech speakers. He had nothing to do with this design, and he dodged a bullet on that one. And you know, I don't really blame DefTech on that. I kind of blame this whole thing on what Dolby's doing, because they're trying to get into the speaker market.
Right.
So in order to get a patent, they had to put this crossover in it, which this crossover does nothing to preserve time coherency or phase coherency. It's all about frequency response manipulation. And if you look at the graph in our measurement, I've never measured a worse speaker in terms of linearity. It's horrendous. But it's by design. It's not DefTech's fault. They're doing what Dolby wants them to do. So you're really limited with the crossover in this case.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes when you work as an engineer, you're given certain requirements, and if you're told to follow those requirements, you can raise hell about it, and still at the end, you have to follow those requirements.
Absolutely. It's the same thing with Bose.
You
I mean,
know?
Bose has brilliant engineers at their company, but if they have to design a product to meet a certain price point with a certain marketing that hits a certain niche, their hands are tied. Their engineers can only do so much.
Exactly.
So again, we love DefTech, we just don't love this speaker. And we should get into the listening test.
Yeah, let's talk about the listening test right now. How about that, Gene?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you'll notice if you do buy these speakers to use for Atmos is when you run the test tones, even if you run the DefTech towers, the tonality is going to be completely different. I mean, there's no consistency in how this thing sounds compared to their great towers. Their great towers use dual 4.5-inch woofers with a tweeter in an MTM configuration just for the mids and tweets, and there's no way that a little 3-inch driver can match that.
Right.
And they don't even give you any specs on this. The only spec they give you is dimensions and 100-watt power handling. I measured the sensitivity. I think it was like 85 dB at 2.83 volts, 1 meter. And it's a 5-ohm speaker. Even though you're not using it down in the low frequency range, the DC of it is around 5 ohms. So for listening tests, we set it up with this Denon receiver that we have here for Atmos, and the test tone sounded pretty bad, but I was a little bit more pleased when I actually listened to Atmos material. I mean, it was given a pretty decent elevation effect, especially with the dynamic high frequency stuff like crickets or little kids shouting. It actually does a pretty good job at limiting the directivity off axis.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, you actually do get an elevated effect, but and this is really not as much of a fault with the speaker as much as it is with trying to reflect sound off of a surface. You still have omnidirectional behavior in the lower frequencies, and a lot of the stuff that's going through Atmos is omnidirectional because it's below a few hundred hertz, and so there's not much they could do with that on this. But I will tell you, as you cranked it up, it did sound very compressed to me. It sounded almost like you're listening to a little boom box as opposed to a high quality speaker system.
Right. Yeah, which is a shame,
Yeah.
Because when you're purchasing a $500 system here,
Yeah.
you're expecting a little bit more performance than that.
Yeah, I mean, $500 gets you a very high quality pair of bookshelf two-way speakers that will just trounce this. I mean, I don't know what to say about that other than they're paying a licensing fee to Dolby to do this.
Again, not their fault. I mean, they're trying to put together a product based on some other specifications, and that's it.
Right. I mean, cosmetically, it's pretty. I mean, it matches their speaker. They did a good job with fit and finish. I can't fault them on that. But and if you're looking to expand your DefTech speaker system and get into Atmos, and you can't put speakers on the ceiling, and you don't mind the fact that the sound is more dispersed than it is accurate or localized to where it should be coming from, then I guess give it a try if you got $1,000 to spare for 2 pairs of them. But personally, I wouldn't recommend the speaker for someone that's serious about audio.
Right. We're all about Atmos when you're using the actual discrete speakers.
Right.
That's a completely different ballgame. Again, I'm just not really into this whole reflective technology stuff.
No, and this is not the greatest example of that kind of speaker technology. We've seen other brands like Pioneer and Atlantic Tech have, in my opinion, better implementations of it. But better is only is a relative term when you're dealing with the Atmos crossover, which is, in my opinion, a limiting factor.
Right. Exactly. Awesome, Gene. I think you've pretty much covered everything there is to know about this topic. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll go ahead and invite everybody to go ahead and check out Audioholics.com, where they can find many more articles and tons of reviews and a lot of myth busting, as you know. And they can also sign up to our free newsletter. And for signing up to our free newsletter, they also get our top 2014 AV Gear Guide, which now will become a top 2015 AV Gear Guide as soon as we go ahead and turn the clock.
Yeah, so subscribe and you will get that.
Absolutely. With that said, until next time,
keep listening, my friends.